And then coming up next, we have Brandy, the body wisdom expert. Let's bring Brandy to the stage. So Brandy today is, I'm going to be talking about how to find yourself for yourself and the 4 secret reasons diets fail. With an M&S background in physics and a teacher for 10 years and 8 years as a tutor, she brings her natural curiosity and problem-solving skills to create a symptomatic approach for healing the body, mind, and spirit. She's a certified coach and soon to be an NLP practitioner. She helps millennial women feel fabulous in their bodies, regardless of physical, conditional, or fitness level. She supports them to release the difficult emotions and to reframe their limiting beliefs about their bodies, food, and their health that hold them back. She teaches a more loving, body-connected, and body-centered way to approach nutrition, movement, mindset, and relaxation to achieve optimal wellness. She's available for physics, tutoring, coaching, anywhere in the world. I had the hardest time writing physics. It kept coming up as psychic. You know, it's so close. It's just almost the same words, just backwards. So my little dyslexia kicked in at that point. So welcome to the stage. And you got the stage for about like good half hour. Okay, good 30, 35 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Sheri. So, you know, unfortunately, by sharing my background or sharing my PowerPoint's background, I lost the ability to bring these up one at a time. But go ahead, and since I can't see all your hands, drop in the chat for me a 1 if you've ever been on a diet. And go ahead and drop a 2 in the chat if you're on that same diet now. All right, we're getting some 1s coming in, and I wouldn't expect to see very many 2s because, of course, diets are really hard to stick to, right? Go ahead and drop me a 3 if you've tried more than 1 diet over the course of your life. Yeah, all right. And no shame here, folks. Go ahead and drop a 4 if you haven't been able to stick to any of them. Yeah, we're getting there. And now a little more vulnerable. Go ahead and drop me a 5 if you've ever thought to yourself, gosh, if I just had more willpower, motivation, I could do this. Or if you've in any way felt bad about not sticking to your diet. Yeah, right. Yes, thank you. And of course, last but not least, like a 6, if you've ever wondered or thought that maybe there was something wrong with you that you couldn't get this right. By the way, like I'm everything that's a yep, I'm right there with you. Yeah. So I have good news for you. COVID fat. Yeah. So I have good news for you. None of this is actually your fault. So like, go ahead and like put your hand on your heart and thank the part of you that has been working so hard at this for you. And go ahead and offer yourself some forgiveness. So you don't fail diets, folks. They fail you. And really the big picture here is that they're not a holistic solution. Diets, along with fitness programs, don't deal with 2 key components of wellness, which are relaxation and mindset. And then they also only operate at the level of behaviors. They don't dig in deeper to the why we have those habits. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today is, what do we do about that? How do we go about addressing these other aspects that diets along with fitness plans don't handle? And so who am I to be talking to? Actually, sorry, what we're going to do today, I'm going to tell you some about my story. Then we're going to talk about these 4 secret reasons that diets fail. And then I'll tell you at the end how to work with me. And just a little bit of pre-framing with all of my background as a teacher that Sheri mentioned. I learned that it's better to teach through examples and common experiences and tapping into what people have lived, and then to come back and sort of clarify and codify and make it all make sense. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. So the my story piece may be longer than for some other speakers, but I promise that I'm only sharing with you anecdotes that illustrate the 4 reasons diets fail. So who am I? I am someone who has this great grounding in the practical, and yet later in my life, in the last decade or so, I've also found this connection to the things that are not measurable and quantifiable or directly observable, the things that we simply experience. So I'm really kind of this union of 2 seeming opposites. And I bring both of those things into my coaching. I can create the systematic approach, but we are tapping into these other unknown, unconscious aspects of ourselves. And I also say that I'm an expert at losing weight. I am not an expert at keeping it off. And what I want to share about my story is pieces of the battle that I've fought and how I've reached a point of no longer struggling with this. Note that it doesn't mean that I'm in a small body, but it means that I've reached a place of surrender around this. So again, I'm not going to read you everything that's on the slides, folks. I'm just going to tell you some snippets of stories that help illustrate. So I started my teaching career in a low-income district, and it had been a while since they'd had a really dedicated, motivated person. And it was the perfect place for me to just throw myself into my work and not take care of myself. I actually didn't know how to take care of myself physically at that point. And I certainly didn't know anything about taking care of myself emotionally. Great way, this job that I could just go gung-ho full in was a great way to like never look within. And I imagine there's probably more than one person out there who's had the same experience. But I had a wake-up call at age 27. I woke up one morning to a message from really my higher self. And my first thought that day was, I don't want to live 27 more years like this, if I even make it 27 more years. And that wasn't a suicidal thought, folks. That was being young and all of a sudden contemplating my mortality first thing in the morning on a Saturday. And I don't recommend that as an experience, but you know, it worked because I quit drinking pop cold turkey that day. I had had a quart a day soda habit. I'd get a 32-ounce drink with lunch. And then some days I would go out and get another 32-ounce pop with dinner. I stopped that day and never looked back. And that began this unfolding of learning how to take better care of myself and realizing that, you know, pointing at my body and at the circumstances of my life as the reason I was unhappy was really easy. And I can imagine a number of you out there may have even thought at some point, God, if I could just be skinnier, I would be so much happier and life would be so much easier. Yeah, that was totally me. But I began to learn that, you know, this excess weight I'm carrying is actually a symptom of pain that I'm carrying that I haven't looked at and haven't addressed. So I, started learning to take better care of myself. And I have been on a weight roller coaster for much of my 20s and early 30s. I would say I've been off of it now. But what was fascinating in my journey is I would stick to good habits for a while and I would lose some weight. And then something would happen that would just trigger this deep sense of shame. And I would need to put so much of my resource toward addressing that I would lose track of my good physical habits. And then once I was feeling better emotionally, I would be able to get back on track with the habits. I'd lose weight, I'd get even skinnier than I was before, and then boom, here's shame rearing its head again. And so I was learning this, how my physical and emotional well-being, health, and healing were so deeply intertwined. And I did eventually seek some professional help. I went to EMDR along with my therapy. My therapist offered both. And I worked on shame. And I also worked on feeling unwanted, unloved, and thinking I was unlovable. And that's really kind of startling where that all comes from. And I do want to share one brief moment that was really deep healing from all of that. I came out of the session around feeling unloved, and I noticed that my sense of my chest was different until I had the experience of feeling like my heart area was whole. I'd actually spent my entire life until that point feeling like there was a hole in my chest. Like my sense was that I should have been able to like put my fingers into my chest wall, because there was just that deep, deep wound in my heart space that I had finally started to heal. And once I had, a new experience, I was able to see what had been going on. So watching the time, fast forwarding a little bit, I dug in deeper with shame. And when I got into my health coaching program, and I found two things that were really important. One is that it was providing a physical barrier of protection. And I'll say more in just a moment about where that came from. But then I also finally really could see that, oh, all my weight is actually keeping me from feeling that shame that has been activated so many times. Isn't that interesting? So we had both the outer protection, but then also, this weight was protecting something inside me that I was trying really hard not to feel. And it's also a really key piece of my story that in between the finishing, or I should say graduating from therapy, from regular therapy, I go in for tune-ups once in a while, and then joining my health coaching program, I was working a really painful experience in my life. And I finally was able to see that, and this ties into the unloved, unwanted, unlovable, shame, all of that, that there are behaviors and patterns in my family that actually constitute emotional abuse. And I began to confront the fact that I'd never really felt an emotional connection to my parents. They did a great job taking care of us physically, ensuring that we got to do things we wanted to do and had extracurriculars and hobbies. But as far as like sharing an emotional world or experience, not so much. So that was really just an area of really deep healing that I needed. So I got into this personal development curriculum that lasted multiple years, and I really got to dig in deep, because I'm like still riding that roller coaster of painful stuff happens and then I can't keep my habits and what's going on. And I finally was able through that curriculum to dig down and find, and it won't surprise you if you've ever heard that, children who are abused don't stop loving their parents, they stop loving themselves. That at the bottom of this well that I'd been excavating for years, I finally found self-hatred. And it was really startling because I couldn't see it. In one of the programs in that curriculum, one of the teachers had, given me an insight at the end and said, stop looking for reasons to hate yourself. And I was so confused. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't hate myself, but I'll take this. Okay, thank you. And it was several more years after that before I could finally see it. I was really deeply unconscious to it. And now it all makes sense, right? How am I supposed to take care of myself and deeply nurture myself if what's running my show is self-hatred? Wow. So, I've done all this deep healing, and now we're fast forwarding just a little bit, and I was taking good care of myself, and I was dialed in with my habits, and things were going along really smoothly. But then some stuff happened, like really a lot of professional load was put on me. And I had a breakdown right around the start of the pandemic. It wasn't tied to the pandemic. It was that I had just reached my carrying capacity, and I'd taken on all of the stress and responsibility that I could. And I just simply collapsed. I could not keep up with the mental energy to plan around food, meal planning. I didn't have the physical energy to keep up with like dishes and cooking. And so I spent 2 years where fatigue ruled my life, and I had to let go of those healthy habits. And interestingly enough, I've learned since then that a lot of those habits that are ingrained in our culture as being evidence of being healthy actually constitute disordered eating. So moving right along, I did seek some help from a functional medicine clinic. And I think the most important thing, two things from that I wanted to share, like there's some background here that's helpful, but even though my body was expanding and I'm gaining weight, like my blood work showed everything was okay internally, and there was nothing going on with my thyroid, which runs in my family. And then really the startling, eye-opening thing that just helped cement for me how off everything I'd been doing is that I had my body mass composition measured, and I would have to lose 30 pounds of muscle off of my body to leave room for the healthy amount of fat to be the right BMI. So like all of this work I'd been doing was trying to make my body skinnier than it's supposed to be. So we've now gotten this whole picture of everything that's gone on with weaving the emotional and physical health. And so now I can tell you that, hey, I don't look the same, right? 2018 is the picture from the past. The picture from the present was just taken yesterday, in fact. So why have I been telling you all this? Because your path does not have to be this long, this difficult, or this expensive. I'm in a larger body now, but the experience is completely different because I'm free from shame and self-hatred. And I can help with the NLP that I'm learning to create a similar emotional transformation for my health coaching clients. It's just been this initiation into radical self-acceptance and deep surrender. And I know that was a lot, but again, we're showing before we tell. So how does this apply to you aside from any, relatable experiences? So 4 secret reasons diets fail. First of all, diets neglect this relaxation aspect of wellness. Stress is the root of so many diseases and illnesses. I'd had originally a list pulled up over here, but I've got another window over it. But stress causes an increase in the hormone cortisol, which inhibits weight loss and promotes weight gain. Stress increases insulin resistance. It increases hormone imbalances and any number of other symptoms that we deal with. And really, the key thing to do as a health coach is to help clients manage stress better. So we can do that biologically and chemically through what we eat and how we exercise, but also we can help deal with our minds. And it's not just a matter of tuning to a more positive mindset and stopping ourselves when we're having negative thoughts. We really actually can release anxiety from our system completely. And then that even stops the imagination of undesirable outcomes when we're now inflicting stress on ourselves. And the next piece of the relaxation component is sleep. So, when we don't get enough sleep, our cortisol rises. Hey, that's the stress hormone, right? And our bodies feel it as stress. And so this lack of sleep also causes our stomach to release a hormone that makes us hungry, even though we don't actually need nourishment. So we're much more likely to be snacking and feeling cravings and giving into that. And then, of course, if you don't have enough energy, that's going to cause you to seek quick pick-me-ups that involve very often sugar and caffeine. So in addition to, releasing the anxiety, we can also, if you have a part of you that's really driving you to work and accomplish and do things, we can actually integrate that part that's not allowing you to have adequate sleep. If you have trouble winding down, if you have insomnia, if you have restless leg syndrome, we can actually work with the part of you that's producing that behavior or that symptom, find out what it needs, get that need met in another way, and then the symptom will resolve itself. So secret number 2, diets neglect the mindset aspect of wellness. So we'll start with beliefs and self-esteem because it's our beliefs about ourselves, food, and health that drive our behavior. And, that's our programming. You may have grown up in a house where your parents told you have to clean up everything on your plate. And so now you feel a compulsion as an adult to eat everything that you've served yourself. A limiting belief that I'm having to work through is that I have to give up the foods I love if I wanted to lose weight. You might think that you might have some belief around, I don't deserve to look good and feel good, or I don't deserve to have good health, or any number of other limiting beliefs. So what do we do about it? We can reframe the beliefs and create new and more empowering ones. And then along with beliefs, we also have our identity and self-concept, because that's what really drives our beliefs about ourselves, and this sense of identity comes in a lot of places. You might have a self-concept as a fat person or not an active person. And any statement that you've ever thought about yourself that begins with "I'm just" or "I'm just not" is an evidence of, this identity structure. There's a joke that exists out there, and I'm going to share it not to offend anyone, but to illustrate an example of, taking on an identity. And the joke goes, how do you know when someone is into CrossFit? They'll tell you. And the joke here is not about CrossFit. It's that this is one group of people that takes on so strongly this one aspect of what they're doing as their identity, that it's something they feel the need to share with other people when they're first meeting. And more hidden pieces of identity, like I still have a piece of identity as like the smart kid, and I take a lot of pride in knowing things and having answers. That one's not a harmful one and not related to health, but it's just an example of what does an identity look like that we take on. So we might also believe something about like healthy people or skinny people that we don't want to take on. And we might have this fear that we'll become like those people if we make this change. So what can we do? We can actually dissolve or replace the old identity with a new, more resourceful one. I'm going to tell you how to do all of these solutions in a little bit. So secret number 3, diets neglect psychological reasons for excess weight and the difficulty that we have maintaining habits. So we all have different parts of ourselves. And I am going to read this piece off the slide. Parts are segments of the unconscious mind that are born of significant emotional events. They often have their own values and beliefs, and they also very often protect a shadow component. One example would be that if you have perfectionist tendencies, that could be a part of you that is trying to protect you from feeling inadequate when you don't get it right. And so we're going to have parts that are going to resist changes. And one of the things we want to keep in mind is that every behavior, symptom, or craving has a positive intention for us. So we can, again, we can, have a dialogue with the part of us that's presenting the undesirable behavior or habit, or even the craving, and find out what is it that it needs. And then if we can meet the need in another way, we could then integrate the part and bring the part home and find that the symptom or behavior resolves. I have seen this process used on menstrual cramps, and I've also seen it used on migraines and restless leg syndrome as a few examples. So it's a really fascinating process that we can do to help with that. And then, of course, one more psychological reason that the diets don't address is unresolved trauma. There can be physical trauma to the body that causes the body to have this unconscious need for protection, but then there could be especially sexual trauma that can cause the psyche to feel that need for protection. Coming back to my story briefly, I growing up in an emotionally volatile environment when I never knew what was going to set off the rage and when was I going to have all of this anger directed at me that I didn't understand. Of course, my body felt a need for that physical protective barrier, right? And so the excess fat that we carry can feel safe, help us feel safe. And so what can we do about that? We can clear the emotional resonance of the trauma. And we can do it actually without reliving or remembering the details the way we would need to in a therapeutic setting. And secret number 4, diets also neglect other emotional reasons that we carry excess weight or that we have difficulty maintaining habits. And of course, you may have heard out there about, emotional weight. So really, behaviors like binge eating and craving come from emotional material that we haven't dealt with more than they do needing nourishment. Someone who is binge eating may not just be feeling restricted around food during the day, which then creates this need to eat, at night, like after everybody else has gone to bed. They may also be feeling really restricted and confined in other areas of their life. And so this binge eating helps give them some perhaps sense of control over that situation or a different emotional experience than what they're living out. They may not seem to be connected, but we can dig and find out how they are. And of course, emotions that we feel around our bodies, food, and health can come from beliefs. They can come from our programming. We do also, especially as women, have a lot of programming in our culture around having appetites and desires. We have a lot of things out there that are meant to cause us to feel shame or to feel guilty, like, oh, don't eat that, you don't want to get fat, or don't finish your meal on a first date. You don't want him to think you're a fat pig, assuming heteronormativity for a moment. And of course, there's always, if you have a sexual appetite and you enjoy sex, then, oh, you must be a slut, regardless of whether you have any number of partners. It doesn't matter. So we do have this programming that we have to be able to move through and clear up in order to reach that healthier relationship with food and our bodies. So what do we do about it? We can clear shame and guilt, or we can integrate parts that are displaying behaviors like binge eating and cravings. And the last component here that diets don't address is around ecology. So what does that mean? That's our relationship to our environment and especially to other people. If we think that someone that we love or is close to could possibly be negatively impacted by the change we want to make, or if there's any part of us that thinks that our relating might be affected by the change we want to make, then our psyche is going to put up a barrier. Why? Because all of us want to feel love, safety, and belonging. And if we make this change that could feel like a threat to love, safety, and belonging, that very primal part of our brain will say hard stop, and we won't be able to make the change. So what can we do? We can clear fear from our system. We can work on reframing or replacing those beliefs. And of course, we can go have that dialogue and integrate parts. So, here's that quick summary. My own story hit many, many, many of these reasons that diets and fitness plans only are ineffective. And then what I really want to highlight here is that all of the bolded solutions refer to one or more NLP processes. So let's talk a little bit more about that really quickly. Actually, I forgot about this slide. Sorry. That, as a person who has learned to listen deeply to my body and what my body is saying yes and no to, it would be remiss of me not to point out that, we actually don't want rigid rules around our food and our movement. What we really want to be able to do for optimal wellness is eat when we're hungry, stop eating when we're full, instead of, because we've cleared all of the food, the very small, carefully measured portion of food off of our plates. We want to be able to satisfy our hunger. We want to be able to listen to what our body wants to eat. And it's really important, that clearing process, to make sure that we've done that first so that, we don't have a part that has a positive intention, but the behavior that's showing up isn't actually helpful. We want to make sure that we're getting the clearest, most pure signals from our bodies possible. So we want to clear the things that, might look like an addiction, for instance, so that we know that when our body is asking for, for instance, meat, okay, that's good. Or if our body is asking for salt, we can trust that message. And it's not just like, oh, that's just a part of me that has a craving. And then, of course, we also want to move in ways that are pleasurable and enjoyable rather than, be going at it hard with difficult exercise. So now we can talk a little bit more about NLP. So you can read here some of the formal definitions and why it matters. But really, the way I like to describe it is that we all have things operating outside our awareness that are running us, that are determining how we show up in our lives, in how we eat, in how we take care of ourselves, in every choice that we make. And NLP gives us a set of tools that allow us to access those things and bring them to light without needing some kind of catastrophic failure. Two quick analogies. We often have our furnace or boilers and plumbing in the basement of our house, but how often do we pay attention to it? Like, we kind of don't until like the toilet starts overflowing, or, we don't have heat for some reason. And that's when we go and pay attention to it. NLP lets us deal with ourselves before we reach the point of catastrophic failure. It advances our path to wholeness. And so what have I put together? It, is what I call my Feel Great Naked 90-day transformation, where we're going to deal with all of these things that diets and fitness plans alone don't, right? We're going to reframe and release the emotions that are getting in your way and the limiting beliefs. And we're really going to go clear out the stuff that isn't helping you. And then we'll move on to being able to listen deeply to your body and what feels good for your body to eat, what leaves you feeling energized and fully alive. And then we will conclude by taking a look at where else in your life you'd like to be nourished and to feel fully alive, and what support will you need for that. So this is a very deeply integrated process between NLP and standard like health coaching approaches and protocols. So if you are interested in working with me, you can always book a complimentary Feel Great Naked breakthrough session at brandyheflin.com/breakthrough session. And if you're watching on a computer, but you have your phone handy, you could scan the QR code. It will take you to that same link. And you can contact me at Brandy Heflin Health Coaching, hello at brandyheflinhealthcoaching.com, or give me a text or call. So thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
You are a teacher.
Yes, yes.
the teacher in you came out. I'm like, damn, you're good. I really see a future, my friend. Yes, I really do.
One quick technical piece. How do I, stop share. I got it. Okay, cool.
Good job. So as a teacher, if anybody's a teacher, you did great. You had a great presentation. You followed it through articulately and you practiced. Good job.
I did. Thank you. I would love to find a way to make my about me a little shorter so I can spend more time on the.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about
I appreciate that.
No, we're still alive right now. So
yes,
I'm just congratulating you. We're not fixing you. Okay.
Thank you. No, I understand.
All right. So right now we're going to be doing a door prize. And if anybody here has made a contribution to the event, put your number in the chat because we'd love for you to win. If you haven't won and no one's competing, you automatically win because we support those who support us. Please support us. And we put the information in the chat. You can go to Kaplan Sheri at gmail.com, on PayPal, Venmo -2 and Cash App 12. And you can also go to the link, the Healers Network Fair, and there's links all over the place to make a contribution. So if you would like to win a session with Brandy, put your number in the chat, and you still have an opportunity to make a donation. You can still put your donation and your number in the chat, and then make a donation afterwards. Now we can do this next month, guys. Great. So Hannah, what do you what's your door prize today? You're giving away what?
I had a 60-minute NLP session on core transformation, which is the one that helps work with a part to relieve or eliminate an undesirable symptom or behavior. Or we could do timeline clearing, which is the one to release and completely relieve any of the strong emotions: fear, anger, guilt, shame, sadness, or anxiety.
Oh, beautiful. I don't see anybody in the chat in the room right now that have been donors. So I would rather for you to hold on to your door prize and your time, and honor it for when we have somebody that will honor your time with a contribution.
Sorry, can we do another donation and then put our number in?
And would you like to make another donation?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So so it looks like Dina is willing to bid on you.
Yay, thank you, Dina. I would love to serve you. Yes.
Okay, so
I'm just trying to locate your
you guys, so Dina, go follow Brandy to her room number 37, make an additional donation to us. And then upcoming next, we have Marcella Santana, the microcosm refraction.